Why care about the environment? What is it that we are protecting? Through an anthropocentric lens, we must protect the planet for future generations of humans as we rely on its resources. There is an illusion of separateness between humans and the natural world. We still live within the planetary bounds. We cannot destroy the natural world and expect to survive. The greenhouse effect is undeniable. Increasing temperatures leads to an increase in drought, famine, tropical diseases, more frequent extreme weather events such as flooding and wildfires, economic strife, forced migration, political turmoil, and war as a result. People in developing countries along the equatorial band will suffer the most from the effects of climate change. This is undeniably a human rights issue. Polluting factories are often placed in low-income areas where the people affected do not have the financial means to retaliate, nor do they have access to health care to address the medical problems that arise from the pollution. This is an injustice. But humans are certainly not the only victims of environmental destruction. When we educate people on deforestation, climate change, and ocean pollution, we use orangutans, polar bears, and sea turtles as the face of our campaigns. We must protect wildlife. We've got to stop destroying their habitat. Most of us don't see the world strictly through an anthropocentric lens, but rather a speciesist lens. We care about non-human animals too, but only some. Speciesism is discrimination based on species membership. We arbitrarily assign value to animals we view as cute, cuddly, and exotic. We categorize them based on how they can serve us, codifying protections for some, but not others. When an animal is viewed as a commodity, their interests are not prioritized. Just like racism, speciesism manifests in varying degrees. Some is flagrant, some is subtle. Some people are horrified by certain forms of animal abuse, such as trophy hunting and keeping whales in captivity at SeaWorld, yet make excuses for others, like meat and dairy consumption. We're social creatures who are greatly influenced by our peers and external environment. Most people are raised eating animal products, but few are raised by trophy hunters. Eating meat is a daily habit that is deeply ingrained, whereas visiting SeaWorld is an infrequent vacation. The less attached you are to a certain behavior, the easier it is for the ego to see it as morally wrong. The more complicit you are, the harder it is. Having concern for dogs and cats without a concern for the plight of farmed animals is morally inconsistent. There is no logical distinction between a dog and a pig that justifies loving one and eating the other. Having concern for marine life, such as sea turtles, without a concern for the fish we drag out of the oceans and suffocate, is inconsistent. What gives a sea turtle dignity but a tuna fish none? Having concern for wildlife but supporting zoos is inconsistent. People visit the zoo because they love animals. But what is loving about keeping these majestic beings in cages? They claim zoos are meant to educate children about conservation. But what they really teach children is that it's okay to take animals from the wild, breed more in captivity, pathetically attempt to recreate their natural habitat, and put them on display for humans. Our civilization has advanced to the point where we see ourselves as separate from other animals, despite the fact that we still belong to the animal kingdom. We are mammals, more specifically, we are primates. There is no trait that humans possess and other animals lack that justifies our mistreatment. Because there are some humans that lack the traits we claim give us superiority, and we wouldn't suggest they be exploited in the same ways we exploit other animals. What makes the average Homo sapien so much more special to the world than a whale or a chimp? Without bees, entire ecosystems would collapse. Without humans, nature would restore itself and all other species, aside from the ones we've domesticated, would thrive. We view rodents as pests that must be exterminated, deer as an overpopulation crisis that must be addressed by hunting. But humans are the most threatening pest of all, and no moral person advocates for genocide. We are a cancer that is rapidly metastasizing, But unlike cancer cells, we have moral agency, and with great power comes great responsibility. Although we have a long way to go, we have made great strides with human rights over the past few centuries. And animal rights are the logical extension of human rights. If we break down what makes an action ethical or unethical, it comes down to the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We've all experienced pain, and we've all experienced joy. So we live our lives with the general goal of maximizing our happiness and minimizing suffering. Compassion is a natural inclination for most humans. When we see someone else in pain, it makes us wince and want to alleviate their pain. But most of the pain and suffering in this world is out of sight, out of mind. The further removed we are, the less empathy we have. Systems of oppression exist and are upheld by the suppression of empathy. To coexist on this planet, we need to break down these systems and design a society that is fair and just. Compassion is the core element of such a society. If you were to be randomly assigned a place in society and reincarnated as any object or animal, human or non-human, how would you design that society? If you were reborn in a lower social class, you wouldn't voluntarily work at a sweatshop so a few privileged people on the other side of the world could live in extravagance. If you came back as a cow, you wouldn't voluntarily give up your newborn calf to serve as a milk machine for a purpose mysterious and unknown to you. We tend to focus on our differences, but what is truly important are our similarities. The capacity to feel pain and suffering is what is morally relevant. All sentient beings deserve freedom from intentional harm and exploitation. It's natural to empathize more with humans. Because of this, some say campaigning for animal rights is effort wasted, time and energy that could have been spent helping people. But animal rights and human rights are not mutually exclusive. My capacity to care for people did not diminish when I went vegan. In fact, it grew. Being vegan has opened my eyes to other systems of oppression and the ways I am complicit. It has only strengthened my resolve to fight all forms of oppression and advocate for human rights. And veganism is empowering because not only does it minimize the suffering of non-human animals, it also reduces human suffering. Environmental destruction, which is undeniably exacerbated by animal agriculture, affects people. Cancer and heart disease, which are linked to the consumption of animal products, affect people. The animal agriculture industry exploits vulnerable people. People say there are so many problems in the world, but really there are just a few, as all human-created problems stem from the same roots: greed, ignorance, and apathy. Income inequality, police brutality, animal exploitation, climate change, and war are all just symptoms of these problems. We have built a system based on greed that relies on the ignorance and apathy of the masses. We only have so much time and money to dedicate to bettering the world, so naturally we will prioritize what is closest to our heart. But first we must ask ourselves, of all the problems that have manifested from this system, which am I contributing to with my actions? While donating money or volunteering your time to a cause is morally virtuous, not causing harm is the moral baseline. We may be victims of an oppressive system, but we are morally responsible for fighting greed, ignorance, and apathy within ourselves. We are personally responsible for becoming more ethical than the society we grew up in. The core of veganism is compassion, and compassion is a muscle that grows stronger with use. As Colleen Patrick Goudreau puts it, being vegan is not an end in itself, it's a means to an end, a more compassionate world. In a world where compassion is a core value, human rights, animal rights, and environmentalism are one and the same.
How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me